All right. So, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much. Welcome to the first Principals Coffee of 2021. And, in our second week back, we're seeing more students who are coming back from remote, many more being in person. And that was sort of what we had anticipated with everybody leading up to the holiday break. We thought that there would be more people going remote beforehand, and now we're seeing a lot of those students coming back. I think overall, because number one is that people are not as worried about getting quarantined for either it be MLK weekend or any of the SAT, ACTs that are not really scheduled right now. So I think they're a little bit more comfortable being in the building and not worrying about the consequences of getting a quarantine. So we're going to hope to that it continues along that way. And, I think our faculty and staff are a little bit more hopeful because many of them have started signing up for their vaccination appointments, and many will start getting them this week and even in the next couple of weeks. So we had our nurses last week start, and now we're in the 1B range. So that allows educators to sign up. So my wife and I have a date planned where we will be together separately with nobody else for the first time since March 11th. So we're very excited to go have people stick needles in us. So, Dr. Lamia, I know you're here, and that's sort of a good segue if you wanted to speak about the pool testing. We have another round going tomorrow, and maybe this would be just a good time for you to jump in.
Great. So we started our pool testing, as you know, from all of my communications. And, I have to say sometimes I'd rather err on the side of over communicating than under communicating. So I will always write urgent in the email if I feel that it is something everybody must read each time. But I know that people like to have information, so I try to overshare a little bit. Last week we had a pretty successful week. 171 people were tested. We're anticipating more people tested this week. And as you saw from my email, it was actually one person who was positive. There was a little glitch in the communications with the lab. They sent us a portal, and when we entered the portal after our first set of results, they gave us 3 barcodes with the word detected next to it. What we didn't realize is those 3 were run in a separate pool, and not that all 3 were positive. I had one family that was very upset that they thought they were positive and then they weren't, understandably. And I had another family who was like, hey, these are, we learn from all of these situations. Of course, that I don't think that I could have done it differently, or we would have been able to avoid that mistake given the way things played out. But I felt terrible. I wouldn't want anybody to feel like they might have COVID and throw their whole family into a spin. So I think we've got that ironed out with Miramis Labs now, and we are going to be doing testing tomorrow. I will be at Crittenden tomorrow with Gina Cunningham for our littler ones to help them with their testing. The testing at the high school has gone off without a hitch, and it seems to be going really well. We have already budgeted for another 5 weeks beyond this week to continue with that testing. The initial thought process behind only setting up that many weeks was we didn't want to overcommit ourselves in case something came out that was better. That I'm all really waiting for some amazing scientific breakthrough, discovery, affordability, or a donor who's going to come to me and say, I have PCR rapid tests that people can do on Monday morning before they go to work or school. And, I wanted to, by setting up a 7-week contract with Miramis, see if we had time for anything like that to come through. Certainly, if it doesn't, which I don't know if it will, we will proceed and continue with that testing. I'll have conversations with the board about whether we want to test more people or if this type of surveillance testing is sufficient. And I will get back to you on that, but really it went well. And I have to say, Julie Gallagher is unbelievable. What that woman, as our registered nurse at the high school, has been able to do with this testing. I've been knee deep in it. Julie has been actively involved in it. So every vial that is going out there for a sample, the collection, the putting into pools, the registering barcodes, keeping people's identities anonymous. Of course, if you are positive, you can't be anonymous. After we run the diagnostic test, I have to send your child's information to the Department of Health, but we all know that. But keeping the anonymity otherwise through this barcode system, she works 7 days a week as well. So I just really want to thank her, on part of this community. I don't know if you know Julie. If you don't, she's also an EMS worker, and she just contributes to the community 100 ways over. So I am so grateful to have known her for all these years. Her kids went through the system. She's so invested in us. And it shows. So thank you, Julie, for doing such an incredible job with this. And we're going to continue on with the testing, and I will send weeklies. I'll let everyone know what percentage. Our percentage was a 0.6. That's a great percentage out of 171 people. And we are shooting to do 20% of in-person. Now, the first time around, obviously, we didn't get that, but we'll have more in this next round. Quarantine, or maybe I should stop and see if anybody has any questions about testing before I move to quarantine and vaccine. Any questions about testing? You can always jump in or out of testing at any time. You can write to Julie Gallagher and ask her to, I know she's had a large number of parents who have called her to say, you know what, we wanted to wait and see what the first week was like, and now I want to get started. So you can always do that if you feel that that's something that you would like to do at this point. Okay, seeing no questions about that. If anybody has them in a little bit, you can share those with us. The next question is about quarantines and how quarantines have changed. So we have not had a person who has gone out on quarantine who has become COVID symptomatic. Okay, and what that means is that what we are doing in the schools as far as 6 feet and masks is working. The Department of Health has noted that in all of the school districts in Westchester County. And that's why the Westchester County Department of Health said they are going to go more toward what the CDC guidance is and less toward that overreaching guidance that they were using that was forcing us to quarantine large swaths of people. They know more about this virus. They know about its transmission. So being the doubtful Jen that I am, I wrote to Dr. Thomas Murray at Yale New Haven Children's Hospital. Remember, he's in charge of pediatric immunology. And I said, what do you think about some of these new quarantines? And what do you think about this new strain of COVID? And he indicated that he doesn't think that, he thinks that the quarantine is appropriate, what the Department of Health is telling us to do. And he does not think that the new strain is going to present any more difficulties for us with the way that we are now going to be doing quarantining. So let me explain what quarantining is like. I had a student who was positive. We watched bus videotape Monday through Thursday when that child was on the bus in the morning and the afternoon. We were able to ascertain who sat around that child and only quarantine them. It happened, without sharing too much, to have been a girl and girls sitting around her. So when I say sitting around her, sitting behind her, sitting in the row across from her. So immediately we were able to say that no boy on that bus needed to quarantine. Well, there were quite a few boys on that bus, and then we narrowed down the girls. So this requires a lot of granular work, but I bet that every parent out there is going to be appreciative of the fact that Gina Cunningham, assistant principals, Department of Transportation, and I spend the time, and therefore your child doesn't have to quarantine for 10 days. So, we're all in for doing that, because why quarantine somebody unnecessarily? We don't want to cast that large blanket anymore if we don't have to. And we'll monitor this over time. And if there's anything about it that concerns us, we will reconsider how we do things. But for now, I'm very comfortable with the way we're going to be doing these quarantines. And if there are questions about quarantine, I guess you could put them right in the chat. Or if you're on a phone in a car, you can just bust in and ask a question also. And the last one is about vaccines. So the portal came open for educators, anyone in education, to sign up for the vaccine. I'm sure that we will have people who want it and people who do not want it. and for various reasons. We're not mandated to take the vaccine. I can't force anyone to take it. Personally, I would love everyone to take it, but it also matters what a person's individual health concerns are, their age, and what advice their own physicians are giving them. I'm not giving that kind of advice. Remember, I give comma advice. I'm that kind of doctor. So I am getting the vaccine myself in at the end of January, and I am looking forward to some changes for all of us. Now, keep in mind that students 16 and older are the last phase, and I'm not sure when that is going to happen. I don't anticipate us changing what we are doing in schools for a very long time. You have to reach a herd immunity before you could say we don't need to be 6 feet apart from each other, because those children could very well be taking COVID home to their families if we're going to reduce what we're currently doing with 6 feet of distance and masks. So while, you know, many people are going to get vaccinated, I don't anticipate that changing the way we're running schools for quite a while, unfortunately. If you're in a classroom with someone who's positive, but you are not near them, you don't have to be quarantined. No, you do not. I need to be able to ascertain for sure that your child was not within 6 feet of that person for 10 minutes. And if I can assure that, then your child does not need to quarantine. If I'm not sure, like sometimes in some elementary classes, if we're not sure, we're going to have to quarantine the group. We won't take those risks, but yeah, it's the truth. You could have a positive person in your class. You've maintained 6 feet or more and been masked the whole time. You don't have to quarantine anymore. That's going to be a game changer for our kids coming into high schools. Mr.
All
Wall?
right. Well, thank you, Dr. Lamia. I just wanted to let everybody know we are recording this so that we can send it back out to everybody who was not able to make it here this morning. I want to thank members of the Board of Education who made it here, Lori and Lara. I see you out there. Thank you very much. We always really appreciate you coming out and showing your support. I just wanted to touch base briefly because I know it's been on everybody's minds since last Wednesday. So I was in the middle of our faculty meeting last Wednesday afternoon, and I could see the faces on, the teachers, and they looked really concerned. And I had been so busy preparing, and Colleen and Kristen and I had been getting ready for all of the activities that we were going to be doing during the faculty meeting. We didn't realize what was going on at the Capitol at the time. And Jen Layden, our social studies chair, said, Chris, if you're noticing the concern on people's face, it's because the Capitol has been breached and, everything that it was going on, and obviously I was shocked. I was embarrassed. I was unsettled. I was really upset. And thinking as a 47-year-old man, hearing this information and thinking about what it means to the foundations of our democracy, the safety and stability of our institutions, and confusion, and really just trusting those things that we really hold so dearly to our way of life, my initial thought went to our students and what would they make of this? And how would they be constructing their own meaning about what was going on? So we tried to get together and come up with different resources that we would be able to use facing history. Dr. Kaltenecker was on the case getting all sorts of resources for us. Christina Wilson had her guidance counselors ready to go. And we also spoke with our psychologist and as well as Bernice to be able to make sure that we were ready to support students who were going to come into the building with different understandings about what happened and different levels of emotions. So at the high school, we knew that it wouldn't be something that we could protect our kids from. They would have a definite understanding that it happened. And we wanted to make sure, number one, that we supported their social, emotional needs during this time. So we had a faculty meeting the following morning just to make sure that all of our teachers knew what resources were available to support our students. talking with Jen Lamia, making sure that we were coordinating it from the district level. At the high school level, we would probably have a lot more students speaking about it, talking about it openly, questioning what had happened, and really just trying to articulate their feelings around it. So it gets a little bit complicated because it is a major event. And I know a lot of times in our schools, we want to make sure that we remain as neutral as possible when it comes to issues of politics. And to that end, we are really trying to do that. There's the there's the social emotional piece to this. There's the historical piece, and then there's the political piece. And what we're trying to do, and the message that we're sending to our teachers, is that we want to make sure that we are hearing from all of the students, that we are facilitating conversations, not directing those conversations. Great advice as it was unfolding from Joanna Lewick, our social studies teacher, making sure that we're corroborating all of the facts. And in these cases, things are popping up left and right. We wanted to make sure that we were able to slow everything down and that we were able to corroborate all of the things that were going on at the time. So it is a major historical event, and we're not going to be able to shy away from it here at the high school. We don't want to. We look at it as an opportunity and a learning experience for our students, and we want to help them, guide them through it to make their own meaning of it as we go through this. Ultimately, at home, you may experience some changes that you notice in your children, and we want you to know that we are here and ready and able to support you and them as we go through this, no matter what it be. In this case, it's a little bit more significant. So if you have any questions or concern, feel free to call Colleen, Kristen, myself, or any of the counselors, and we'll be able to direct you to get additional support. So again, obviously we're making sure that what we want to do is to keep our kids feeling as safe as possible as they can be here in the building. We want to make sure and reassure them that this institution, as they know it, is still going to be what it is. All right.
Chris,
Now,
can I
Jen,
weigh in
go
on
ahead.
that a little bit? I just want to pull out the elephant in the room. So there's been a picture floating around on some social media sites questioning whether there was Byram Hills clothing in a picture of the raid on the Capitol. And I just want the community to know that anybody who brings information to me, I've been in contact with our local police department, and they are going to get me a reporting number, if anybody felt that they had information that they wanted to report. I know that in certain instances, people may see like Byram Hills clothing and assume that calling Jen Lamia is going to result in an investigation. These are, if somebody knows about a federal crime, they really need to be contacting FBI, and we'll help them with that number if they need it. I just want to call that out, Chris, because I think that probably most people here have heard or seen that and sort of wondered, like, what happens in that case. And in that case, it's like any other federal crime. It has to be reported federally. So.
Yes. So thanks, Jen. I appreciate that. And, certainly the mission of our district ends with productive and responsible citizens of the 21st century. And that's ultimately what we're always trying to do in any of these situations. We want our students to leave here as productive and responsible citizens of the 21st century. So, all right. We have a very, very full agenda this morning, and I appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, I would just ask that you hold them off until the end of the topic, and then you can ask them in the chat box. So you can put those over there at the end. A lot of times your questions will be answered. I did want to highlight a bright spot for us here and congratulate our Authentic Science Research students, 6 of them who were named as semifinalists last week. And, you know, I know all of our seniors have worked extremely hard in that program, but 6 of them were highlighted for their work and will be highlighted on the national level now. And so congratulations to Jared Alan, Raquel Canner, Ali Hafez, Bailey Goldstein, Mia Dietrich, and Olivia Cantor. Just a tremendous accomplishment. So even more impressive is all that they had to do. I think when I was speaking to Stephanie Greenwald, the science research coordinator, she was saying that each one of these seniors had to change their projects in some way or another, some really significantly, and the way that they were doing their research because of the pandemic. So most of the time, our juniors would be going out before their, during their junior to senior year summer, they would be doing their research in different locations. And a lot of that had to change because of the pandemic. So really just incredible for them to still be able to get to this level. It's just a testament to their grit and determination. So congratulations. And it really is a nice bright spot for us as we start the new year. All right, so let me get going on our agenda. I'll present here, and I'm going to introduce Bernice Pagan first, who is our student assistance counselor, and very happy to have her present as we start the year. Let me get going here.
Here I am. Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. I am Bernice Pagan, and I'm the student assistance counselor here at the high school. This is my second year. This year, I'm also helping out at Coleman Hill, which is where I am. I'm in a small table with a small chair, but hopefully we can get through this. And I am going to be sharing some information about vaping. It's not a new topic, but we like to sort of keep parents updated. I have 3 at home. Sometimes I feel sorry for my children because I'm sort of always out there looking and listening and wondering what's going on. But again, it's an important topic. COVID has been at the top of our list, but vaping is a piece of this that we're working with the high school students. And I just wanted to sort of share this presentation, give a little bit of information, see if you have any questions. And of course, if you do, please reach out. There's my contact information. And I'm going to be looking at my screen as well, just to sort of make sure I can see everything. And we can go ahead, Chris. Thank you. All right, well, there I am. Contact information. Though I'm at the high school and Coleman Hill, my email is the same, my phone number is the same, and I'm available 5 days a week. So if you need to reach me, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right, can you spot the 3 vape products? All right, festive, colorful. Anybody want to take a guess? Anybody want to try? 3 of them have to do with vaping devices and 3 do not. All right, anybody?
I'll try. Super.
All right.
Oh my goodness. I definitely think those things on the left that look like computer things.
Okay, that's 1.
Because I've heard that before. That little fire, 3 milligrams of fire, that just looks suspect to me. And so does believe it or not, the little ice cream cone.
Okay. All right. Well, you got one right. One right.
I got one right. See?
Yep.
This is why we need you, Bernice.
All 3 on the top have nothing to do with vaping. Flash drive, an eraser, and just some regular, pretty colorful mints. But one doesn't know, right? This is part of what we have to be aware of, that we don't know what we're sort of looking for sometime. And obviously the marketing and the advertising is not. These are easily hidden. One would never know it. The 3 on the bottom, you can tell a little bit by the name, the flavors. These are e-juices that you use in the vape pens, which we'll talk a little bit about in a few. But I thought this is a big piece of it, is what are we looking for and what do they look like? How does it work? And what's going on? Go ahead, Chris, thank you. So what are vapes? These are different examples of vape pens. The top left would be sort of the original e-cigarette. They have lots of names. There are about 100 different types out there that young people and adults can choose from. They come in rainbow colors and sparkles. The one on the lower left, the Stig, is disposable. So it's a one-time use. Toss it out and move on to the next one. Now in that Stig, one of those, that box of Stig comes with 3. So that would be the equivalent of 60 cigarettes, so 3 packs of cigarettes. One of those Stigs is the equivalent of 20 cigarettes, and it comes with about 270 puffs in it. So really, depending on the user, depends on how long it lasts. But that's a sort of a popular one with the disposable. They don't have to share. We'll talk a little bit about that later. This is their own, especially now during COVID. This has sort of vamped up a little bit because it's much safer because you're not sharing. This is how our vape products use. Again, 100 different brands. They all pretty much have the same pieces. They have the mouthpiece. They have the cartridge in the middle, which holds your liquid. You have the coil, which is the third piece, and then you have your battery. Very simple. They all sort of have those. That's how they work, whether they're larger or smaller or prettier or fancier or bigger. Really have those 4 pieces. So the mouthpiece, most of the vape devices have pods that or cartridges that are already filled. So depending on what you want to do or what you're using, whether it be vaping nicotine, and you can also vape marijuana, which we'll talk about later, those pens look a little bit different, but that juice is in there, that liquid is in there. Your battery heats up that coil, turns that liquid into vapor, and there you have it. It's not smoke, it's a vapor that's coming out, and it's really just the inhaling that gets it started. You're not plugging it in, it doesn't heat up. You can toss it under the pillow if you get caught. You can put it in the backpack. So it's sort of something that you can use and sort of put away quickly. You don't need a match. You don't need a lighter. There's no odor. Sometimes you might smell a hint of fruit or menthol, but really hard to miss, hard to notice. I'm sorry, easy to miss. And this is, of course, even though it was started to help older smokers reduce, it's worked out wonderfully well for teens, right? And young adults who want to hide it, who want to pretend they're not doing it, who want to try it and throw it into the pillow and that kind of thing. So it's basically the same mechanics, whether you're vaping nicotine or fruit flavored water or marijuana, same idea. All right, Chris, thank you. Who's vaping what? I think the important piece to remember is not everyone is vaping. Not everybody is vaping nicotine. Not everybody is vaping marijuana. Sometimes the news, the social media makes you think that everybody is doing it. And when I work with students, they have the same thoughts, whether it's alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, everybody's doing it, so I should be doing it. It's not happening. The numbers here for 2020 are a little bit different from 2019. I should have put up the slide with 2019 so we could sort of compare it together, but I'm going to focus on the nicotine and the marijuana section. It's 8th grade, 10th grade, and 12th graders. In 2019, 8th graders were vaping 20.3% of 8th graders were vaping nicotine, so it's up a little bit. In 2019, 36.3% of 10th graders were vaping nicotine, up a little bit. In 2019, 40.8% of 12th graders were vaping nicotine. So that's a little bit of a jump there. I was really hoping the numbers would go the opposite way with COVID, but they have not a bit. But again, importantly, not everybody is vaping, not everybody is using, not everybody is drinking. These are just sort of some numbers as far as there are quite a bit. The 8th grade is sort of a little bit of a concern. But the 8th graders, I find, before I came to Byram Hills, I was at a school with a middle school and I was working with 8th graders. They really are convinced that it's flavored water. You know, they're trying to just sort of be cool, be a little bit more mature, be a little bit older. So that's where the younger ones are sort of like, I can do this, sort of like so-and-so who's in the high school, you know, but they really are confused by the ingredients. The older ones are starting to understand that the ingredients are definitely not good, not good. And then just a quick run there for the marijuana. In 2019, 9% of 8th graders vaped marijuana, so it's up to 10.2. 21.8% of 10th graders vaped marijuana in 2019. And then 23.7% of 12th graders vaped marijuana in 2019. So a little bit of a jump, not huge, but I really thought maybe they'd go lower with COVID and sort of social isolating and sort of lack of social interaction. But again, don't know exactly the reasons why. Could be because they're socially isolated. My guess is if they are connected and invested in vaping, they're going to do it no matter what, no matter what's going on around them. Okay. All right, Chris, thank you. All right, vaping and COVID-19. Not a lot of research, not a lot of studies done at this point. They are finding Stanford Medicine as a good resource. They are finding they're 5 to 7 times more likely to get COVID, assuming the lungs are not in good shape. You know, vaping, whatever you're vaping, damages those lungs. Your immune system is not up to par, so you're more susceptible to infection, bacteria, whether it be COVID or something else. You might also hear about lipid pneumonia, which is caused by the fatty acids in the e-juices build up in the lungs, and it creates this lipid pneumonia that they are able to treat, but it's common among vapors. Nowhere for that fatty acid to go except build up and cause a problem in the lungs. Another one that you might be hearing of is EVALI, which is pretty new diagnosis. It's electronic vaping associated lung injury. Presents a lot like a pneumonia, but does not react to the antibiotics that would help you if you had pneumonia. Again, pretty new. Doctors are seeing it a little bit more often. Puts you at risk then for COVID, of course. And again, increased risk due to hand to mouth. You know, we're constantly talking about washing our hands, and you're sort of using and putting it in your mouth, and the fungus and the bacteria on the mouthpiece. Teens are still sharing their equipment. You know, some of them don't all own their own devices, but they certainly share it. And even if they have their own, they're just sharing it because here, take a hit. I've got some, have some of this, that kind of thing. So a higher risk, more susceptible for sure. Flavorings. Flavorings have really changed. There used to be, when I first started doing this presentation a couple of years ago, there might have been anywhere from 5,500 to 7,000 different flavors that students had access to. Creme brulee, mint, bubblegum, blue raspberry, cinnamon, vanilla, all kinds of combinations. Those flavors have since been banned for the most part. There still is like a mint or a menthol, tobacco flavor. But flavorings, you know, if you, they grab the attention, you know, they taste better. They smell, you know, there's a small odor of the fruitier ones, but the young ones, this is what appeals to the young ones, the flavors. You'll see here in the lower right corner, the Jewel, that's the most popular among teens in Westchester. In every district, any district, if they're vaping, it's usually the Jewel. This is a starter pack that you're looking at. So the stick is the main piece that they inhale from. The piece at the bottom of the stick is the charger, which fits perfectly into their computer. So that piece fits into the computer, and the stick sits right on top of that, and that's how they charge that device. The starter kit, nice as it might be, comes with 4 pods. The top of the pod tells you sort of what flavor it is. So I'm guessing this is an old picture. You probably have mint, strawberry, vanilla, and maybe a creme brulee of some sort. You pull off the top of the plastic, you discard that. You see that often around the the garbage around the floor. You pop your cartridge into the top of your Juul and you're ready. That starter kit is about $49.99 depending. And if you go onto Juul.com, you click, all they want to know is that you're 21 and over. It's now 21 and over to buy it, but you just have to say yes or no. You know, I know that some of the teens are using the Visa gift cards. My own kids love to get the Visa gift cards instead of gifts from grandma and other people, but they are able to use those to purchase. So you may not know it. They may not be using your credit card. They may be having it delivered somewhere else. They're not supposed to be delivering it, but of course, we know it's about the money and the marketing and what they're trying to do, make money, right? So that would be the most popular. Hidden vapes, here's another one. Is Dr. Lamia still on? Does she want to take another shot? She may not be. Okay, again, on the left and the right, just, you know, different kind of backpacks, take a look around. If we were doing this presentation in person, I would have my own samples to show you. Some of them fit right in the palm of your hand. Some of them fit right in that small pocket in the front of your jeans. It's hard to tell. I think I have a duplicate slide there, Chris. The next one is the same. Is it? Yeah, find the vape. So on the left, if you notice on the top of the backpack, there's headphones. You can see a couple of Juul pods there. On the right-hand side, sitting on the yellow notebook, it looks almost like a whiteout container, correct? That is a vape, and that fits right into the palm of your hand. I think the other important piece to note from this slide or these slides is that teenagers and young people have so many gadgets. We don't know half of what they are or what they look like. I know that when I first did the first slide that Dr. Lamia went for, I was confused too about which ones were part of a vaping device. This one was also confusing for me. You know, if you look at the top right of that blue backpack, to me, I'm seeing now a pack of Stig, the disposable, but that's, I think, gum. You know, so I guess the point here and the takeaway here is it's hard to know what they've got. Some of them are innocent. I see whiteout. We see lipstick. You know, but the vaping industry has also put out different vapes that look like other objects. Last year when I did this presentation, there was a watch that you can wear. It looks like an Apple Watch. You pull off the top piece, you take a hit, you put it back on, and nobody knows the wiser, right? Some of them look like lipsticks. There's another one that it's strictly for marijuana, but it looks exactly like an asthma inhaler. So if your child doesn't have asthma and they have this asthma inhaler, that's a heads up, right? So this is all about really just sort of keeping an eye open, keeping an ear open, seeing what's happening. Vaping nicotine, we know it's a stimulant and highly addictive. In these devices, in these juices and other pieces in the cartridges, they're using nicotine salt, which is stronger than your regular nicotine. So it's going straight to the brain. It's impacting their executive functioning. It's opening up their brain for other addictions. So it's much more potent, much more dangerous, can lead to nicotine overdose, including seizures. And again, sort of what we talked about earlier, that lung tissue, more susceptible, the lung is not able to do the job it's supposed to do, and things can happen and go downhill from there. All right. Again, back to the marketing. We've got the weekend up there on the top left, now part of a company invested in. We've got Bruno Mars down at the bottom. He has invested in, I believe it's PAX, he has invested in. These other two young people are TikTokers and YouTubers, big following on TikTok and YouTubers, and this is sort of what they're advertising, you know, marketing again, singers and actors and people in movies are sort of seeing vaping, are being paid to vape, are investing in vaping companies. However, what is good to note is that if you do go on TikTok or YouTube, there are many anti-vaping ads and videos. It's not all about pushing it. Again, going back to not everybody's using, not everybody wants to use, but the younger ones and the young teens, they don't believe that they're being marketed to. They just believe, you know, so-and-so's doing it, Katy Perry's doing it, The Weeknd's doing it, their YouTubers are doing it, can't be all that bad. And they stick with that whole piece of, This was invented as a safer alternative for the adult smoker, to get them off of traditional cigarettes. The young people stick with that safer piece and go with that. Again, they can use these vape, they might be called pods or cartridges. They may look a little bit different. For marijuana, they may call it waxing or dabbing. They're wax pens or dab pens, same idea. The brain has cannabinoid receptors, and when that THC jumps onto those receptors, it interferes with the normal production of what's happening in the brain. And these are brains that are not fully developed just yet. So we've got decision-making issues that are already sort of, they don't always make the best decisions as young teenagers, right? So you add a chemical to the brain and it's not really working out too well for them. All right, Chris, where are we? Examples of weed pens, carts, they're a little bit different, but they work the same way: the mouthpiece, the cartridge, the coil, and the battery. Some of the weed pens or carts, you can adjust the battery, which makes it hotter, which makes it more potent. You can also adjust how much you can take in, which can be quite dangerous. So if they want more, they just turn it up. If they want less, they just turn it down. None of these are regulated. None of these, we have no idea what's in the cartridge. Many of them come loaded. Now they've started to come empty. So our young people are playing scientists. They're putting a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and they're creating their own cartridge. And they're sort of refilling them as needed with whatever they want in them. Again, a danger. Buying them filled is a danger because it's not regulated. But then when you start to see young people mixing and matching and can be a whole different issue. Again, if they're not smoking, one more piece about the marijuana. When we think about marijuana, we think about the leaf. In the 80s, the THC, which is the main ingredient in marijuana, had a potency of 3%. They started sort of changing the way they grew it and got creative. And a couple of years later, then your potency was about 23 to 29% THC. Add some solvents and chemicals, we are up to 73 to 85% potency. Very different than that leaf way back when, right? It's almost the equivalent of if you have the 3 red Solo cups, one has a cup of beer, one is a cup of vodka, and one is a cup of grain alcohol. Very different. None are great, but obviously the effects and the consequences are very different, the potency as well. If they're not vaping the marijuana, they have options of the gummy bears and infused edibles. This is from a site, Exotic Cart, as you can, well, it's there on the slide. That website is no longer. They've been sort of taken down by the DEA, but of course, when one is taken down, many others pop up. But again, lots of alternatives. If you go into some of our local gas stations, our convenience stores, you can see the products. They're supposed to be 21 and over. Everything's available on the internet, including how to mix and match, how to vape, how to put it together, what to use, what not to use, that kind of thing. What's next, Chris? Effects of marijuana. So they're young, their brains aren't developed, that decreased IQ, relationship problems, right? It can become the focus of their life, decline in academics or sports, extracurriculars. They may be participating in riskier behavior than they might if they weren't using. So they may be making poor choices. Psychiatric problems. You may see hallucinations, delusions. You're going to see increased anxiety, depression. Again, none of this is regulated. These also can be, they can also be, what's the word I'm looking for? You're going to find other substances in this. So it's not just pure marijuana. We don't know what's in it. It can be contaminated with other products that give you a problem. The reward system of the brain, the THC jumps onto that. It's providing, it's promoting, it's creating extra dopamine. The brain doesn't know how to make its own. So then they're sort of not addicted to it, physically addicted to it, but physiologically and psychologically, they're not able to function. So they're focusing on, I need more of that so I can function correctly. And then the hippocampus is the part of the brain that serves learning and memory. And of course, that sort of can go out the window pretty quickly with the more that they're using and the more invested they become. All right, resources. I gave you a couple of things there that I got some of this information from. I think it's important to just really sort of learn as much as you can, be aware of what's going on out there, be aware of what your children are involved in. If you need help, reach out. If you have questions, do the same. You know, big major changes in your child can be sort of a hint that something's sort of going awry. And again, I tell the students and parents whenever I meet with them and work with them is that the majority of people are not using. But when they are using, this is sort of what they're using. This is what it can do for them. Both of this can be a gateway. Many vapors who vape nicotine move on to the traditional cigarette. So we've got a whole new generation of smokers, even though we were trying to eliminate that generation, the money that they're spending, that kind of thing. But again, the majority are not using gateway drugs to other things sometimes. And that is what I have. So
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bernice. And I just wanted to share the 2 flyers as well, which are going to be, they'll be in the presentation that I send out also.
Great. On January 20th was that first speaker, Chris, from 7 to 8:30. Marijuana, parenting for prevention is the topic.
There we are. So Wednesday, January 20th, and then there's another series of speakers there looking at different issues that our students are going to be facing and giving tools to our parents to help them. Well, Bernice, I really appreciate you taking the time to be out here. Thank you very much. And again, when this goes out, your contact information will be there as well.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Bernice.
All right. Take care.
All right. I just wanted to shift gears and let Kristen Sautner speak a little bit about our senior internships. They were reintroduced to our seniors recently, and I wanted to give her a little bit of time to explain to our senior parents what that process is going to be like.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. For those of you who may not know me yet, I'm Kristen Sautner, one of the APs here at the high school. And one of my favorite programs at the high school is the senior internship program. Back a few years ago when we had our traditional internship program and we were going out on sites to visit students, it was incredible. Seeing your sons and daughters in a working environment, thriving and using all the tools they've learned throughout the last few years is so rewarding. And I really, truly hope that we will be back in that place. Since we are in a very different time right now, we did want to offer multiple options for students this year, depending on environmentally where we are at with COVID. Back in November, the link that Mr. Wolf doesn't necessarily need to click on now is an overview of the program offerings for this year that went out to parents. This week, it went out to students as well as a reminder. And essentially what it goes over is the 3 options that students have for their internship this year. There is a traditional option, which would be attending a traditional internship experience, depending on environmentally where we are at with COVID. It could be virtual hours, which would be up to 20 hours, and or potentially in person, depending on COVID. From there, we have a hybrid option, which would be 10 hours of either virtual or in-person internship experience, coupled with some projects and different interviews and interviewee experiences. And then from there, we have a fully remote option where it is all project-based. Common themes between the 3 options are all students will have an advisor here at the high school. Teachers that primarily teach senior students will be advising students as they always have. There will be weekly meetings, there will be journals, and it will definitely be exploring career opportunities for students regardless of what they choose. Other common themes, I should say, is Ms. Croak, who is the advisor of the program, myself, and Ms. Triolo are available for students as needed with finding meaningful internship opportunities, troubleshooting what's the best choice for them. We are offering 2 Google Meets this week, Wednesday at 2 o'clock during small group instruction, and Thursday morning at 8 a.m. So both are virtual options for students to ask questions, get clarification, hear more from us. We are asking that students fill out a Google form by the end of this week to tell us what their projected program choice is. Meaning, are they choosing the traditional program? Are they choosing the hybrid, which is some internship experiences, some projects, or the fully remote option? We are asking that because we are trying to diligently plan ahead for how to match students best up with advisors and what types of programs students are interested in. We are also asking that students and or parents let us know if there's an advisor, if there's a teacher that you would prefer your son or daughter not to work with as an advisor here at the high school, that's fine. We really want to make sure that their culminating experience is a positive one and that everyone's personality matches up as best possible. From there, we will be matching students and teachers throughout the next 2 weeks. And by February 1st, we will be sending out the list of advisors and students, as well as the electronic handbook with additional information. We have, due to COVID needs, this is all in flux and there could be changes, but we wanted to provide as much organization and structure as possible for students as they start to explore a really exciting time, which we hope to create as much as possible, despite any limitations we might have. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm here now. I'm available via email. Same with Ms. Croak and Ms. Triolo. We just want to make this a great experience for the seniors.
And we also know that, thank you, Kristen, a lot of the companies that are out there have had 10 months to start figuring ways out to reopen their own internship programs. So one of the things that we faced at last year's programs were that companies just were not willing to have any sort of remote. They didn't have either the option, they weren't going to have our students in person, and we couldn't encourage that either. So we do know that there has been a lot of changes in industry. And we know that there are more possibilities for our students to be able to intern remotely now as well. All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate it. And we'll figure out how many we have in each of those categories. So thank you very much. But I would like to welcome, there she is, Miss Lisa Pellegrino, who is our math chair. And I asked her to present this morning just so that she could give us an update on our math transition. She's been presenting for the last 2 years, and certainly in all of that planning, none of it entailed having to do what we're doing through a pandemic. So Lisa, you can take it over and just give us an update on everything that you're seeing and how great your faculty have been with all of this.
Thank you, Chris. So as Chris said, this is our second year for the high school in our revised acceleration model. It's our 4th year overall. So the current sophomores are our first group to go through this revised acceleration model. So they started when they were in 7th grade and are now in 10th. So Chris, if you want to go to the next slide there, thank you. And the main part of our presentation today is just to talk about the 2 opportunities for acceleration that students have. And those are outlined in red. So you can see the first one occurs at the end of 7th grade. And so for the entirety of 7th grade, just as in 6th, the students are given opportunities to do tiered assignments of varying levels of challenge and for students at different levels of readiness. At the end of 7th grade, a certain cohort of students will be recommended for Algebra 1A in 8th grade. The intention of that first pathway, so if a student is put into the accelerated program at the end of 7th, the intent is for that student to culminate in AP Calculus BC. So for anyone that doesn't know, the difference between AP Calculus AB and BC is that BC is 2 semesters of college calculus, whereas AB is 1 semester of college calculus. And I will say the BC program in most schools is handled in some way other than just the senior year, because it is a very rich and dense course. So that content is brought down either through electives throughout high school, or it's brought down, part of that content is brought down into the junior year program. So that's why if you look at that blue pathway in the 11th grade, there's a course called Pre-Calc/Calc A, because that class is actually half pre-calculus and half calculus, so that students are ready for BC the following year. If students are not recommended for acceleration into that first pathway, there's still what we would consider the main pathway for acceleration, and that occurs at the end of 9th grade. So students would continue with pre-algebra and then algebra 1 in 9th grade. Those students, again, would experience tiered assignments both in the middle school and high school. And at the end of that year, there would be another recommendation process into the second pathway for acceleration. That's our green pathway, and that pathway culminates in one of 2 courses, either calculus that is not AP Calculus or AP Calculus AB. So again, AB is 1 semester of college calculus. Our non-AP Calculus differs year to year, but it's anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 of that AP Calculus AB curriculum. And then we have in yellow kind of your traditional high school pathway, which would be algebra followed by geometry, algebra 2 trig, and then finally culminating in pre-calculus senior year. What colleges are really looking for is for students to have exposure to either pre-calculus or calculus by the time they get to senior year. And they're really looking for a foundation in trigonometry, which would happen in any of these 3 pathways that you see here. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about what informs that second pathway curriculum, because the most natural question is you're taking, we call it a 3 and 2. You're taking 3 years of math and kind of condensing it into 2. And we do that by really being very cognizant and careful of the curriculum that we are choosing for that course. So the top 3 call out boxes are the primary things that inform that curriculum. If you come into the math office, you can see our index cards scattered all about on our walls that have all of the different standards that are needed for that course, and whether or not they stem from either the ACT or the SAT or both. So we want to make sure that we're addressing the content that students need for those standardized tests. We also want to make sure that we're addressing the content that students will need for the choices that they're going to make in science, whether they want to take chemistry, whether they want to take biology or physics. And then last, but obviously certainly not least, is the knowledge that they would need to be successful in calculus. And then on the side callouts, we have the things that inform both of those decisions. So we have New York State standards stemming from right now the Common Core, but next year will be our next gen standards. And then on the right, we have more either local standards like our homegrown standards, or national coming from things like the College Board. So the 2 classes that you see in green there are trigonometry/algebra 2 and then pre-calculus. And the only thing I want to make a very specific note about for that is the first course there, it is called trigonometry and algebra 2. So based off that, you might wonder, well, where did the geometry go? That course does still contain geometry in it, and specifically the geometry that's needed both for the standardized test as well as subsequent years of math. It's just the naming of the course based off parent feedback. We felt like that was the most appropriate name for the course, but if you look at the course catalog and the course description, that class contains both concepts from geometry as well as trigonometry and algebra 2. So then we have our next slide. These are our pathway criteria. These are up and available on our website. So primarily what feeds into the decision at the top there is students taking advantage of and being successful with extension points and opportunities on assessments. This is not students necessarily having to hurt their grade by taking one version of an assessment over another. Sometimes parents have that question from middle school. This is actually additional opportunities that students have for extension, and that can come from either an in-class assessment, something that's a take-home, etc. When students are doing a presentation on a particular task, we have a rubric for that, and we look for them to consistently earn 5 points. So to give you a reference of what the 1 through 5 points means, a 4 would be success at grade level, whereas a 5 would be considered going beyond grade level, either in depth or breadth or both. The third that feeds into it is our in-class observations of students. And this is not just kind of generic observations, but rather it's based on a facilitation grid that we have. So we're looking for very specific behaviors. It's not, okay, did this student take cleaner notes or nicer notes than someone else? I know a lot of times when people hear things like this, they think about, oh, are these just kind of teacher pleaser behaviors? It's really not. It's what did the students say in class? Are they making conjectures? Are they trying out new things? Are they creative in their approach? And then our last piece is the problem sets that we give, and those are also versioned to meet students where they're at in that particular moment. So we look for them to do the extension ones and also to reflect on their mistakes as an opportunity for learning. So if you go to that next slide, Chris. Here's what we're seeing across the board, both at the high school as well as 612. We're really seeing students coming from a prior mindset of like, there's one right way to do something in math and I need to do it that way too. We're all working together. Each one of us has different opportunities or different things that we're bringing to the table. And I should say, not to leave out elementary school folks, I've been to the elementary, and this is what the students are starting to see there as well. So we're really getting a nice K-12 vision of math is not just about one approach, but multiple approaches and which approach might be better for you in that moment. We're seeing students that are working towards benchmarks or standards that are suitable for their learning. So again, not a one-size-fits-all approach. And in order to do that, what we're trying to get students to do more and more as they move through the grades is to self-assess and be accurate in how well do I know this material and where do I need to improve. Flexibility for this is key. Obviously, COVID has given us all new skills in flexibility, but our approach in math, it really started years before COVID in being able to be flexible and meet our students where they're at in that moment. What we love to see is students constantly pushing themselves to try new challenges, and that manifests in different ways for different students. And it could be on a particular day or a particular content. One day a student might be in a particular place with material, but then the next unit they say, oh, actually this one I'm finding I'm really doing well at, and I'm ready to push myself to the next level with it. It allows us to have students access mathematics that's beyond that particular grade level, and some students are ready for that, and we want to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And then this last bullet comes straight from our Algebra 1 teachers recently, because they wanted to make sure that I highlighted this, which is there's really opportunities at both ends of the spectrum. We have opportunities for students if they need it for remediation, either additional help with this year's work, or if there's things from the past, COVID or not COVID related, that they need help with, we're there for them for that. But we also have opportunities for them to extend past whatever it is in that particular unit. And I think that's kind of the 50,000-foot overview of our acceleration program. Like I said, this is our second year in the high school, our fourth year overall. And I was just chatting with our 3 and 2 teachers this morning about their current sophomores, and their big takeaway was this. We felt like we really made good decisions, and in conjunction, the teachers in conjunction with the students and the parents, the students that are in the program right now are successful. And we really feel like we've made good decisions and given kids the opportunity to advance if they were a late bloomer. And that's really the biggest thing that we're seeing here, is the students that maybe otherwise wouldn't have had that opportunity in middle school. They weren't ready, but now in high school they are. And so far, knock on wood, we're excited and we're happy.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anybody have any questions that they wanted to post? Nothing yet. All right. Well, Lisa, I know you're available through email, and if anybody wants to call to have a conversation with you, you're available as well through that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Lisa. So I wanted to give a brief update on our master schedule and our process. So just as a reminder, we were going through the process of seeking a new master schedule all through last year. And I wanted to thank again all of those parents who came in at the beginning of the 2019-20 school year for our stakeholder meeting. And it was through those meetings where parents gave feedback about things that they would want to see in a master schedule. And what we always tried to do in that process was to say and ask the question whether the master schedule that we were using, whether that represented the values of our community. And it was during those stakeholder meetings where we were able to really see that our master schedule at the time did not fully reflect what we valued as a community. So we took the steps of taking and gathering our data from Challenge Success, which was a huge part of the impetus for our move towards needing a new master schedule. And then also all of the interviews with students and with our community to get this underway. So at the beginning of last year, we convened the Master Schedule Steering Committee, which was made up of members from each department, administrators, and then we also worked with our Student Advisory Committee to make sure that we were moving forward and that we were seeing as much as we could in terms of all of those different master schedules that were out there. So we started to go and look at these different schools. We took tours of Nyack, Somers, Bronxville, Hastings, Croton Harmon, and Westlake. And these were selected because each one of the schools offered a different part of the schedule that we were interested in here looking at Byram Hills. We thought that it either was something that intrigued us or it was something that came out of our stakeholder meetings that we wanted to look at. Ultimately, through the entire process, we came to March 4th. And March 4th of last year, we went through many different discussions on the master schedule during our principals' coffees. We had meetings with our master schedule steering committee, with our students, and through all of those tours, we were able to come up with a prototype of what we believed to be the schedule which best represented our values here at Byram Hills. And we presented that at the March 4th, 2020 faculty meeting. And one of the interesting things at that meeting, we opened it with saying, there's coronavirus, we're not sure what's going to happen, this thing could take off, we might be out of school for as much as 2 weeks dealing with this. So at that time, back on March 4th, we really weren't, we knew it was coming our way, we just didn't know the impact that it would have on us. So the following week on March 11th, that was the last time that we met as a faculty before we left on remote instruction. And then from March and through all the way to the end of the year, we were managing with our remote instruction and trying to make sure that we were managing our launches, that we were setting up our office hours, and that we were looking to make sure that all students had equal access to the teachers. But during May through August of this year, we created our blended learning schedule. And that blended learning schedule has really given us the opportunity, once we implemented it, to look at different things that we would have presented with our Byram drop. And now the Byram drop is the schedule that we are going to present and move forward with and present to the Board of Education to certify for us and approve. However, there are still a few things within that we need to address. Specifically, the passing times. So how much time do students have walking through the hallways, the duration and the placement of office hours / extra help in the schedule, the class length, and the shifting of the new schedule in the new year if we are still under these different guidelines due to COVID. So ultimately, what we came to a consensus on with the new schedule is that we needed to have longer periods of instruction for each class. So currently, if we go back to our drop schedule, our classes are 49 minutes. On A days, they were 44 minutes. So we knew that we wanted to have opportunities for more in-depth, less teacher-centered instruction, more student-centered, project-based, group, multifaceted instruction to take place in each class. And in order to do that, we had to increase the length. So right now we're looking at each class period being anywhere from 62 to 65 minutes and making that shift. The passing times were important because until this year, all we had was 4 minutes of passing time. And I can go back to my time when I was shadowing one of our current seniors when she was a sophomore. I shadowed her for the day. And at the end of the day, I felt like a pinball. I was just bouncing around, running to the next class, never having any time to catch my breath. So the discussion came up this year because we needed to make sure that our students were safe when we were passing in the hallways. We increased that time to 10 minutes so that we could stagger each one of the classes as they were going through the hallways. And what we noticed with that is that the tenor of the building really was a much more calm building. We also knew going into this that we needed to go from a 26-minute lunch, 25 minutes on an A day, to a much longer lunch. And what we came up with is a 45-minute lunch. Now that we have been able to test out here this year because our lunches are 50 minutes. And what we've seen when students are in school is they actually have time to be human beings. They actually can digest their food, eat at a normal rate. They can do work. They can meet with teachers. It's just a much more sophisticated way to go through a day. One of the other things that we were looking at was making sure that we were embedding an extra help / office hours within the schedule. And one of the things that we've been able to look at this year with our small group tutorials and our independent e-learning is how they would work, whether they were at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. And for us, what we've noticed is having them at the beginning of the day, it makes for a much calmer start to the day. It also gives students a lot more flexibility than they have had in the past in terms of when they wanted to address their work, when they wanted to get to school, and being able to have some flexibility if they had to stay up one night for doing a lot of work on an assignment, to have a little bit of a cushion to start their day. At the end of the day, what we've noticed is that those students are able to collect a lot of the work that they have throughout the day that they've gotten and they've been assigned, and they're able to catch up with their teachers to be able to get clarification. So the point that we're looking at is, where do we want to place that extra help session in the day? Is it at the beginning of the day? Is it attached to lunch? Is it at the end of the day? Going back to March 4th, our faculty at that time thought that it would be best to place it after second period. And placing it after second period would allow students to all have to engage with it at some level. The other part of this is that with the increased time that we would have in class, it would also reduce the total number of classes that students would have each day. So on our A day last year, going back to our drop schedule, students would have 8 classes. They would see 8 classes each day. With this new schedule, we are looking to keep it like we're using now with our blended learning, in that each class would meet, students would meet 5 classes per day. And that's a much more challenge success oriented way to build a schedule. And in that way, what you're doing is you're giving kids the opportunity to experience all of their classes so that they're not feeling like they leave at the end of the day and can possibly have 8 different courses that they have to do homework for. In this way, they know that they're going to have 5 classes and they're going to be able to manage it a little bit more. We know that we don't want to have students having any more than 3 assessments in a day. This will allow it to be managed much more easily to be able to do that. So what we're looking for in terms of feedback is I'm going to present the schedules. So we're calling this a 2064 opening. This would be if office hours were at the beginning of the day, where each of the periods meet. This was the March 4th consensus schedule, where after that meeting, the faculty came up with this. The other thing that we've been looking at really significantly since we've had our blended learning schedule is the duration of those office hours. So going back to our work with Challenge Success, when we were out there, we noticed that many of these successful schools were showing that they were having what they would call a brunch. And that brunch was anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And it was basically a break in the mid-morning. And a lot of it was students just relaxing. What we've noticed here with our blended learning schedule is that those office hours or small group tutorials, they can really be utilized by our faculty and our students to go much deeper than they would have been able to go during a regular extra help session. So now where we have a number of our students showing up for extra help on certain days for certain content areas, they may be waiting around. They may just want to ask one question. Well, with these office hours, it can be much more directed and much more effective for the faculty and for the students. So faculty members can pull back students in different groups. They can focus what they want to work on, and students, if they're going in, can have a much more intense experience. And it is dedicated. So we've looked at going anywhere from 15 minutes up to a half hour for these office hours. And what we're coming to a consensus on from our students as well as our faculty is that we really want to zone in and explore that 25-minute office hour. And right now it seems like the overall consensus is moving towards having that at the beginning of the day during our opening. So I know we have not done this very often when these principal coffees have been remote, but what I would like to do now is to just open it up. So if you would like to speak, I would just like you to put a thumbs up in the comment box, and then I'll take your question as they come up. So if you've had any questions, you don't need to type them. You can put your name up there and I'll call on you if you have anything to speak about the schedule. So really, we're looking at the length of passing time, how long kids have in the hallway, the duration of class time, the lunch being 45 minutes, and then the office hours, the duration and the placement in the day. We're looking for feedback on that. Of course, if you're not comfortable offering that here, I would be happy to hear your thoughts through email. Or just give a call and I'll talk to you on the phone about it.
I can start with something to consider. The duration of office hours. How is that considered? And I agree with you with the morning placement, but if you could talk about placement options as well.
Yeah, so the length of the office hours, we were going back and forth. And initially, back in the spring, we felt that 20 minutes might actually be too long. But right now, we have office hours with our blended learning schedule that are actually 45 minutes if you consider the small group tutorials. And then in the afternoon, we have them at 25 minutes. So we knew that 45 minutes was going to be too long because that would take away from class time a little bit too much. But what we are seeing is that in the afternoons, that 25-minute bit of time, the faculty and the students are saying that when they're utilizing it, it is something that they really feel they're getting a lot of value out of. In the morning, we're considering it there because, like I said, it's not something that we would force all students to utilize. So we also know from research that sleep is one of the most major issues that we have here in terms of impacting our students' stress and anxiety. And if students are willing to use that in the morning, those office hours, we will have them doing that. It doesn't necessarily mean that that will be every day of the schedule for them. If students and their families want to use that time to gain a little bit more sleep, the American Medical Association would applaud us for that, and that would be something that would be consistent with the data for reducing stress and anxiety. Great question we had about when it would be implemented. So the start and end times would actually be the same. So the students, the first bell would start at 7:40 and class would start at 7:45. If we put office hours in the morning, that would mean that office hours would start at 7:45. And then the day would end again at 2:25. Now, we were looking to start this schedule next school year, and we would look to do it trying to manage all of those things that we have to deal with in terms of COVID-19 and all of the guidelines. So Kristen Sautner and Christina Wilson doing our schedule and managing that have been working on that now. It's important to note that students would still be able to request as many courses as they have in the past. They would still be 8 courses that they can take throughout the year, 7 with a lab science.
Are you doing away with all 7 a.m. types of classes in this new schedule?
That's a great question. Right now, we feel like we can offer some of those classes as part of the office hours, but we're just not 100% sure that we can make that determination just yet. So it's a great question, something that we still have to work on a little bit.
I know I brought this up to you, but it's another thing that has always kind of haunted me with my kids regarding office, whether it's office hours after school, before school, but one of the constant problems comes up this year. It's kind of alleviated because of the cohorts meeting different times. But when students do go into teachers for extra help or clarification of things, there's been quite often numerous people kind of waiting in line, and they're all coming in for different things. So it's been kind of repetitive that my kids have come home and said, I couldn't get the help because they were helping so many other people with not things that I needed, help with. So, yes, my kid that's still left there does like his sleep, but having the extra hours in the office hours in the morning, it has really helped a little bit more because less people are there. Maybe it's because it's split. So if you're in school, people will either go one or the other, whichever works. And obviously teachers are a lot more accommodating, but I do think it's important to offer it multiple times still, because if they eventually get back where everybody's in school at once, some classes, some teachers are going to have a line waiting, and the kids get impatient, and a little frustrating for them to get the help that they need instead of just waiting there for them to help. You know, there's only so much that one teacher can help with all their kids that are, you know, seeking. And it's not just, you know, chemistry is lucky. They have all these TAs. Math doesn't. So it's a little bit, you know, you really need the teacher's attention when it comes to certain things.
Yeah, it's a great point. And what I want everybody to know is that those extra help sessions after school, I know some teachers do them even before school, those are not going away. Those are still going to be there. And these office hours can be used to be a little bit more prescribed for those students that either the teacher feels they need to have the extra support, or whether they want to ask a group in. So the office hours are going to look a little bit different than just the math extra help before a test or a quiz. All right. So I know that, you know, it'll take some time to think about these things. And if anybody is reflecting on this discussion and wants to reach out to me, by all means, reach out. All right. So pool testing dates, Dr. Lamia went into that, but we have one tomorrow, next Wednesday, the following Thursday, then February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, and then February 11th. So I did want to include this. I'm not going to go too deeply into it. Joy Reynolds, I don't know if she's out here now. If she is, I'll allow her to speak to it. But Joy Reynolds put this together for parents to understand Google Classroom a little bit more. And this was something that I thought would be really nice for parents to be able to watch. I know we're giving you a lot today to look at, a lot of videos, but it's just something that can help you understand what your children are dealing with and how they're experiencing school when they are remote and even in person. So this Google Classroom is a tutorial to just help you get a little bit more of information about that. So that I will include when I send this out via a blast. Very excited. I know going home last night, I passed the Byram Hills bus at Thunder Ridge. So we do have those kids out there for skiing. We do have track up and running, and then also skiing, swimming as well. And then we're in the process of trying to get our production up and running as well. So there are some good signs of hope here, and we're going to continue to move in the right direction constantly. All right. Well, I'll stick around as people are, you know, heading out. I do want to thank you for taking part of in this supersized Principal's Coffee. This is a 92-minute one, and feels like back in the old days when we were in person. So I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. And thank you very much. Have a great week, and hope to see you soon. Take care.